Hey there students, HM English here. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing good. Today we're going to carry on with the topic of semantics, and today's session is about meaning, thought, and reality. So we're going to talk about how can language describe the world around us. Before I start, as usual, I invite you to like the Facebook page of this channel in order to be notified whenever I post something new, and also subscribe to my channel if it's not already done. That would encourage me, of course, to do more and help you out during the period of exams. So let us talk about things we see, hear, or imagine. For example, when I say that dog looks vicious, or when I say we just flew back from Paris, right? So here when you say that dog and the word Paris, the noun phrase and the word help us point to real things. So this is called reference. It's really important. You need to remember this. This is called a reference. So reference is when we refer to something specific in the world, and the thing we refer to is called a referent. So you have to keep this in mind. So you need also to know that words also belong to a language system. You must have dealt with the whole idea of language in the field of linguistics. So Paris not only refers to a place, it also works in a system of meaning. What do we mean by that? The word Paris, you can compare it to London or Rome. So this is a part that we call sense. So if you understand Paris, it means Paris works in a relationship with the word London, Rome, Algiers if you want, whatever capital or city you want to talk about, right? So just to refresh your memory, reference means the real world connection. Sense is how a word fits within a language system. Okay? And from this we have two big theories of meaning. First one is called referential approach. If you want to call it denotational approach as well. So this theory says words mean things because they hook onto the real world. So you have nouns, they refer to objects, sentences refer to situations, right? So different realities. The second theory is representational approach. And basically this theory says that words reflect the way we mentally organize the world. For example, when you say in English you have a cold, in Irish you say a cold is on you, and in Somali, for instance, a cold has you, right? So each language represents the same situation differently because of, if we can call them mental modals, right? And then we have types of reference. We have a referent versus non-referent expressions. So referring when you say, for instance, the cat. So the cat points to a real thing, such as when you say maybe, not, very. So these words add meaning but don't point to anything directly. When I say maybe, you don't have an image or something in your mind or something that pops into your mind, right? And then we have constant versus variable reference. Constant means always, it refers always to the same thing. For example, when you say the Pacific Ocean, it's always the Pacific Ocean, right? When there is the opposite of constant, which is called variable. Variable, it means it depends on the situation. For example, the words I, you, here. If you take here, when I say here, it means now in a room where I'm recording the video, but when you're watching this video, you're going to use the same word, and here will mean a different location, a different place, right? And then we have reference versus extensions. Referent, it means one specific thing being talked about. Extension, it means all possible things that a word could refer to. For example, when you say dogs, right? So say dogs, it means all kinds of dogs. Then we shall move to names and noun phrases. So names, if I had to pick a name, for instance, Brad Pitt, we can say names like Brad Pitt are definite. So the speakers or the speaker assumes you know who that is. And we have two theories to explain how basically names work. We have description theory, which means a name equals description in your mind. For example, when I say the actor from Fight Club, if you have watched the movie, you would understand it's Brad Pitt, right? And then we have causal theory, which is basically names are passed down socially, even if we don't know the details. For instance, you may know Einstein, but not what exactly he did. So you don't know the technicalities, but you actually know who the scientist is, right? And then we have noun phrases, or what we call in grammar NPs. So there is what we call definite noun phrase, which means we assume exactly the meaning of the phrase. For instance, when you say the woman, you are assuming that I know exactly who this woman is. And there is indefinite. When you say a woman, it could be any woman, right? And then we have generic. Generic is like when you say something quite complicated, a cholecystectomy, which is a serious procedure, but we're not referring to a specific one, right? But also nouns can refer to groups, like when you say the students avoided each other, or substances or actions. You can say coffee, sleeping, or abstract things like justice. It sounds quite easy, but it's necessary to go through this in order to understand the broader spectrum of semantics. We have also mass versus count nouns. I'm pretty sure you already dealt with this in grammar, especially as a freshman. We can say count, like a banana, you can say 3 bananas, but mass, it means the things that you cannot count. For instance, the word milk or furniture, you can't say 3 milks. It's incorrect, grammatically incorrect, unless we mean 3 glasses of milk. In this case, it's correct, right? Now you need to ask one important question. Is reference enough for meaning? In my own opinion, I would say no. There is more to meaning than reference. For example, a unicorn, when you say a unicorn is ignoring a maiden, no real unicorn exists, but the sentence is meaningful, grammatically speaking. When you say this example, I found it in a book that deals with semantics as well. Anwar al-Sadat and the president of Egypt both refer to the same person but have different senses, right? And here we use Frege's idea. We have reference what the word points to, and sense is the internal meaning or concept that allows us to refer. Okay? And what do we mean by mental representations? Some linguists say meaning is based on mental concepts. At first, people thought concepts were mental images, like we all did. The problem is we all imagine different triangles. If you think about it, you can't know if the triangle I'm thinking of is the same one as the one you have in your mind, right? So now concepts are thought of as abstract mental units. It's not a question of pictures, right? It's not an image. And I think it's better. At least we can all agree about the same thing. Then we have theories of concepts. We have definitions, which I think are necessary and sufficient conditions. If we try to define words by a checklist, for example, when you say a woman or woman equals human plus adult plus female. The problem, what if someone is missing one feature? Are they no longer a woman? Let's suppose woman equals human, of course, but this woman is not an adult, but she's still a female. Now, can you say, according to the definition that is given, is the word woman is correct by definition, right? And then we have causal theory. Again, we're going to speak about this. We use words like elm or gold without knowing their exact definition. We rely on experts. And in linguistics and also semantics, we call this the division of labor in language, right? We have another theory, prototype theory. Some words are based on typical examples. Sparrow, which is a typical bird. Penguin, it is a bird, but less typical. In other words, boundaries can be quite fuzzy, but not strict. And then we have frames and ICMs, which means idealized cognitive models. This means words are tied to cultural models. If you say, for instance, bachelor, which means an unmarried man, but we don't call the Pope, for instance, a bachelor. Why? Because our frame of bachelor includes expectations, young, dating, eligible, etc., etc. So the Pope cannot have that framework. So we have the notion of concepts and hierarchies. Concepts are often organized in hierarchies. We have the superordinate, like for instance when you say animal. We have basic when you say dog, for instance, and subordinate when you say beagle. So we usually use basic level concepts in daily life. We say dog more than we say an animal or the kind of the animal, right? And how do we learn concepts? We often assume kids learn by pointing and naming, right? So when you say, oh, that's a dog, you say this to a kid. Philosopher Quinn says this is not enough, because when someone says, for instance, gavigai, how do we know they mean rabbit and not tail or fast? So learning concepts is more complex and may involve innate knowledge or internal rules. So you can ask also, do words control how we think? This is a linguistic relativity hypothesis. I've dealt with this previously, a long time ago, with one of my videos about linguistics. You can also know it under the name the Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis, which basically stipulates that language shapes how we think, and different languages categorize the world differently in terms of color words, body parts, etc., etc. For example, like I've given you already one example before. In English, you say you have a cold. Somali, you say a cold has you. The Irish would say a cold is on you. Some say this affects our conceptual world, while others, of course, disagree, which is still debated nowadays. And then we have language of thought hypothesis. And this view says that thought is separate from language. Babies, animals, and even adults can think without words, so we probably have a mental language, like an internal code that's deeper than English or Arabic. Also, we often say less than we mean, so listeners fill in the rest. This means language underspecifies meaning. It's just a tool to express parts of our thoughts. And when it comes to final thoughts, what do linguists do with all this? Everything that we dealt with so far. You have some linguists focus only on language itself. This is called semantic relations within language. Others build theories based on reference. We call this formal semantics. Some also build theories based on conceptual structure, and this is what we call cognitive semantics. You should know that each group has a different view of how language connects to thought and reality. So this is it for today's video. I hope you have learned something new in the field of semantics. And of course, if you have any kind of question, feel free to ask me in the comments below, message me, and I'll answer you as soon as I see your message. Share this video with your classmates if you're all dealing with semantics nowadays, especially during the period of exams. Otherwise, I'll tell you, see you in the next video. Peace.